Contract chaos at the Pentagon.
A conversation with the SASC chairman.
And it's earnings week. Welcome to The Breakout. I'm Aaron Mehta.
And I'm Valerie Insinna.
So Val's joining us here this week because we have a couple of stories we want to discuss that she was key to reporting out. The first one we're going to start with is the WTF story, as we're calling it, because that was our headline. So we got a couple tips saying, hey, there's something going on with Army contracting. Maybe some contracts are being frozen. Maybe all contracts are being frozen. There's emails. People are freaking out about this.
Yeah, I mean, this all started from our Army reporter, Ashley Roque, getting tips from inside DOD, inside the Army, inside industry, that something was happening, but no one really could tell where this was coming from, how far it extended. It was very confusing, but there was an email that seemed to be passed around that said at the very least that the Army is shutting off contracts, pausing solicitations, and there was tons of industry concern about this, understandably.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is normally when there are rumors like this, you go to the service or you go to DOD and they're able to bat it back and say, no, that's not happening or whatever. In this case, a lot of our sources internally were saying, no, this is happening. And we actually found solicitations online that said, look, this is paused right now because of a directive from the Army to stop all contracts.
Yeah, it's a weird thing when you talk to sources inside the government and they basically say, oh, I'm glad you're looking into this because we've been trying to figure out what's going on for the last 24 hours. That's not usually how it goes. The big takeaway to me was, at the end of the day, we published this story, and our story was nobody knows what's going on. We never said this is absolutely happening, this isn't happening, because we couldn't get a clear answer on that. Ultimately, DoD put out a statement about 6 or 7 hours after we published saying, no, all contracts are going forward. Notably did not knock down anything we had in our story or push back on any of the information that we had, because of course what we had was accurate to what was going on at the time. To me, Val, the big takeaway is industry was lost, freaking out about this. And even though there's this statement right now, I think there's still a lot of concern that something like this could be in the works at some point.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think part of that is due to the fact that we still don't really have a definitive answer for what caused this. We don't know whether this is something that the Army was doing, maybe this was one of a multitude of memos that the Army was composing just ahead of the Secretary of the Army coming in. Maybe this was something that the Army had gotten some direction from the administration to do. But those answers really haven't come out. And so I think there's still quite a bit of trepidation about what could happen to contracting going forward.
Yeah, industry never wants to hear there's a chance that their contracts are going to get frozen or canceled. And certainly with some of the stuff we've seen from Elon Musk in recent days and some of the things we've seen elsewhere in the government, I think there's a reason a lot of them are still concerned. All right, Val, let's turn our attention to Congress, which is part of your beat. You had an exclusive sit-down with Senator Roger Wicker, the Senate Armed Services Committee chairman. Learned some interesting things. He had some pretty big thoughts here. What was your top-line takeaway?
Well, I think the first priority that is on his list is increasing defense spending. He's always been, very adamant that needs to happen. The way that he sees that, potentially occurring, the first opportunity for that is the reconciliation bill that Trump and Congress are trying to hammer out right now. Trump has talked about a big, beautiful bill that would contain all of his priorities. And Senator Wicker and Congressman Rogers over on the House side are trying to ensure that it contains some defense funding.
Yep.
I think the big headline there is that Senator Wicker wants to see $200 billion added for defense for 2 years.
And for context, the defense request from the Biden administration was something like $870 billion.
Right, so you're getting to that $1 trillion.
Yeah, even by DoD
line.
money, that is actual real money. So let's say this happens in reconciliation, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is just some sort of dark magic that occurs.
You're not far off. You're not far off.
That goes through and DoD gets this money. What does Wicker think it should be spent on?
Well, he gave a couple examples. The first one was the American Iron Dome system. That's a kind of very political thing to spend the money on because that's one of President Donald Trump's biggest priorities. The other things that he mentioned, he said broadly shipbuilding and submarines, big, pet programs for him.
Yeah, Congress always wants more boats.
Of course. And then the last thing was the Air Force's next generation air dominance fighter, the 6th generation fighter that it's been trying to find some money for. If that money ends up coming down the line, then the Air Force might be able to go forward with that program.
Yeah, generally speaking, if Congress says to the Pentagon, hey, take more money, the Pentagon doesn't go, no, we're good. They'll find a use for it.
Yeah, I mean, if I were in their position, I would take the money too.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about money because it's earnings week.
At Leonardo DRS, our agility helps bring the ability to dominate in any scenario, on any platform, helping our warfighters accomplish the mission and get home safely. Leonardo DRS, our agility, your advantage.
Okay, well, Val, let's talk a little bit about industry. It's been a bunch of earnings calls in the last week. What's the top line takeaway?
Well, last week were all of the big primes, so think your Boeings, your RTXs, your Northrops. Not a lot of huge headlines, if I'm being quite honest. Everyone is playing quite nice, sending signals that they look forward to working with a new administration, and especially are looking forward to working with DOGE, trying to make the government more efficient.
Right.
Even when analysts were asking some spicy questions, I think one asked Lockheed about how its relationship with Denmark is, given Lockheed's ownership of the F-35 program and, just given all of the discussions about Greenland in the news. The CEO there very wisely did not engage. So I think, that's quite typical for execs.
Yeah, execs right now are doing the Matrix thing, just dodging bullets left and right.
Absolutely.
As best they can. A couple of nuggets here and there. One of the takeaways was a sale out of Northrop.
Yeah, that's right. Northrop decided to sell off its training services business. Very, very small in terms of numbers, but just shows how companies are trying to reoptimize themselves. The other thing is some big losses coming out of both Boeing and Lockheed Martin this past quarter. With Boeing, it was $1.7 billion spread around, all of its, troubled fixed price
the
contracts.
problem children.
Yes, so Tanker, Air Force One, T-7, they're still going through it, still trying to figure out how to get those programs back on track. Although, execs still say that those problems will eventually be profitable. It's just taking longer than they would like. Lockheed also logged $2 billion in classified losses. One of those, everyone is pretty sure, is the AMRAAM replacement. But the one that is still kind of squishy is there's a program out of their aeronautics division that's been having losses. So that could be any number of interesting projects that, maybe we've never even heard of.
Yeah, you never want your plane to be squishy, but, obviously we have limited information about what that is. I'm sure we'll be finding out more at some point. All right, well, there's more earnings calls to come this week. Make sure you're following the site and make sure you're subscribed to Val's newsletter, the industry business newsletter that we have. You can find the sign up on the site for that. And make sure you're liking and subscribing to The Breakout. It helps us get directly to you and helps us find new viewers as well. Thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Mehta.